unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. And here we are at episode 400. It's the start of our 8th year of the podcast. I had no idea in 2019 when I sat down with my friend G. Mark Phillips behind some microphones in his living room where these creative travels might take me and how this podcast and all the many creative guests I have would impact my world. So today it's quite appropriate that I welcome as my guest Matt Ross, entrepreneur, media executive, author. He crosses so many worlds of music and art, and his new book is called Grow or Fold: Transform Yourself in Midlife and Beyond. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Matt has himself spent 30 years in building businesses at the intersection, as I said, creativity and leadership. He led New York's legendary rock station Q104 and hip hop station Hot 97. Then he helped to start and scale the School of Rock. And who of us hasn't heard of the School of Rock? And his latest startup is One River School, a real art education, one of a kind. There's now 15 schools across 6 states. It's quite a record of creativity, Matt, and congratulations on the new book.
I appreciate that. I was just thinking, congratulations to you. 400 episodes, having spent time in radio. I know what goes into this, the time, preparation. I also thought for a minute, 400 years ago, 1625, Renaissance era painting, man.
There you go.
This is kinetic right now.
So good. Thanks. This book, I love the title, Grow or Fold.
Yep.
Matt, having spent decades running and building creative organizations, you wrote and were inspired to write Grow or Fold. Why this book? Why now? And what does this title mean to you?
All right, so I'm going to take you to my coffee table in 2018. I was sitting there quietly having breakfast, morning coffee, and I said something out loud to myself, which I rarely ever say, and that is, I feel great. And I'm like, I feel great was really weird because I've been grinding so hard in midlife. I'll tell you about that story in a second. But I then pivoted to what did I do? What did I do over the last 8 years from 2010 when I turned 50? And my life was really in a bad place, and I'll share some of that. And I said, you know what? I could help people. I'm going to write a book. It came out of nowhere, Mark. I never had a thought in my life that I would write a book. But what I wanted to do was document what I did to help people, because I realized over the years how common it is to struggle between the ages of 40 and 65. We get stuck quite often in a midlife moment and don't know what to do. And now I thought I built a toolkit. So I spent about 4 years writing the book.
Fantastic. And clearly inspired by and informed by a career in so many organizations with musicians, mentoring young artists, empowering educators, rock and rollers, all of the above. What are some of the lessons that you felt like you could share across those experiences?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. The book tells my journey a little bit to get to middle age so that people might be able to relate to, in their own way, to what I was dealing with. I had a lot of issues. I had health issues. I had 2 brothers lost to addiction. I had all 4 of our parents dying or declining at the same time at 50 years old. We sold the School of Rock to a private equity firm, and then they hired a new CEO, which is what quite often happens. And then my 16-year-old nonverbal son with autism had a full psychiatric breakdown. That was all in the same year. I came home after we got him to a psychiatric ward in Westchester County that night. I was in the basement. And I said to myself, are you going to fold? I literally sat there in the dark and beat myself up. Are you going to fold, loser? Or are you going to grow? And I didn't know what I was going to do the next morning, Mark, but I knew I needed to take charge of my life. I'd become too anxious. I was worried as hell. I felt guilty that my brothers were in decline. So I went to work on myself. So inevitably, what I think I did was I had this epiphany, may not seem that smart to some people, to treat myself like a business. So how do I separate my emotions and what I was going through from building a real objective plan? I was really good at building businesses, really good at building strategy, framing what needed to be fixed, what needed to be prioritized, and building that step-by-step sort of pathway. But not so good in my personal life because my emotions got in the way, as it does for all of us. So I decided to treat myself like a business. It started with taking a deep inventory in three ways: my personal life, professional life, and to try and figure out if I can really nail down what this term purpose meant, which is so often used. A lot of this was motivated by my desire to live long and to start to take control over my life, because the stress, anxiety, lack of sleep, all those things were clearly going to get in the way of my being able to be healthy. So that's where I started. I built this toolkit to work on myself like a business, and then I built a toolkit to stimulate my personal growth. And I could talk more about that as we share here.
Yes. Certainly, we think of terms like grow or fold as a call to action for business. If you're not growing, you're going to fold. But it's interesting to now mirror that in a personal way. Taking inventory is a step one. What did you find out when you said, let's take inventory? What's in the closet here?
Great question. So you take inventory, and what you have to do, which is really hard to do, is to be uber self-aware. This is your moment. In business, you have data. You've got objective data, right? You can separate it. But now, like, I'm taking inventory and I'm realizing I'm a little too impulsive. I'm a little too hot-headed. I'm a little too driven. And those tools that served me well in business didn't serve me well in my personal life. I needed to find that sort of, I don't want to use the word zen it's overused, but I needed to find a way to calm myself down so I can invest in my health, solve some critical problems like, how do I break this chain of addiction with two brothers? I don't know if you've been through this. I had seen it growing for years and years, but now they're older. I'm the youngest of three. I always had this profound guilt that I had done so well and they struggled. And then in this moment, Mark, one was living in public assistance housing, angry as hell at me, calling me, yelling at me. The other one was suffering from suicidal ideology and calling me and telling me he was going to commit suicide. So naturally, I would have these calls with them and it would turn into an emotional burst. Didn't know what to do. So I went to Al-Anon. I found a great therapist. The very first thing I needed to do was to take personal responsibility. And I write about that. It wasn't about others. It wasn't about their addiction. It was how I responded to it. And I didn't have the toolkit. So I needed to invest in my growth to help manage my own behaviors related to the world at large. I needed to build a plan to get my son out of this crisis and then find a new school for him, a residential school, because he became really difficult at 16 years old, behavioral and aggressive, and he was struggling so hard. We needed real professional help. So went to work on building a plan, and in a few months we got him into a residential school in Maryland. And those were mission critical items that I, like a business, these are, we'll call 30, 60, 90-day goals.
Right.
Short-term goals. And then I had my longer-term goals, like what was I going to do with my career? Longer-term meaning 1 to 3 years. And I had, when I left School of Rock, I was still being paid. I had a couple consulting deals. I wasn't hurting for money. I had that benefit to take that and just move it slightly to the back burner as I worked on myself and got past the critical issues. So what I would say to your audience and people is start with doing an inventory around personal, professional, and purpose, and rank order prioritize, just like we do in business.
Yes.
What is mission critical that you have to do 30 days, 60 days, 90 days before you can start to chip away at other goals?
You've been very forthcoming and transparent, Matt, in describing this, and I can't help but think of a couple of things. First of all, how many, I'll say, performance review or across the desk conversations have we had and not know what's going on in the other person's life? And yet, all the things that you've just described could be going on with them as they are with you. The other thing I couldn't help but wonder is we are often taught in business, and I'm guilty of this, of keeping all that inside as if that's personal, this is business, never let them see you sweat, and so forth. And yet, you've borrowed some insight from our mutual friend Jack Canfield of taking 100% responsibility. Yes, it's not your fault, or yes, it's not your responsibility for someone else's actions, but it is for your response. How will you deal with it? And you decided to take it on and say, what am I going to do?
Without a doubt. When you shared that, I tell people, and I'm out there doing some talks now. My book comes out on January 13th, and I'm so proud of it. But I sort of tell people that if you looked at me in the midst of all of that, you wouldn't know I had issues. Because see this? I've got a big smile on my face all the time. I am that guy. I'm built in a positive way, very enthusiastic. I want to help people. I want to be engaging. So I almost never go there and share what's going on when things are really bad, unless it's in a deeply quiet, profound moment. So I think to your point, we most of the time don't know what's happening in other people's heads and households, and asking questions to see how people are doing and not trying to make it not about you, make it about them. That was a Stephen Covey thing. The best way to be understood is to be understanding. And I try my hardest to do that every day, to make it about others, not about me. And that serves me well. And I think if others think about that, how you make others feel is what matters most. And I think Maya Angelou said that. They
Yes.
won't remember you for what you said or what you did. They're going to remember you for how you made them feel.
And certainly, you talk in the book about creative spaces, and this has been essential to your business, is creating
Yep.
a business with creative space, which is essential for our well-being and connections. And you really look at it as building communities through art. I'm curious how you've seen art schools, studios, community programs really impact adults, students alike.
Yes, a great question. One of the profound benefits of making art is I really believe that it helps ward off neurodegenerative diseases. There's data out there that suggests that doing abstract, challenging things helps to create new brain matter synapses, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I've seen firsthand at One River School is the joy and the calm people get by tending to an art project that is of their own interest. So we've built this program where adult students, we don't just say, hey, you're going to copy this, render this, do this. We ask them in our program, what do you like to do? What do you think you'd like to draw or paint? Or so it has an emotional connection to them, the subject matter. And we build a personal plan for each of our adult students and guide them through that process. Inevitably, I think creative growth is the X factor in life. We stop doing it, Mark, often at middle school, because quite often, most of the time, our parents sit above us going, you're going to go to college, you're going to get this job, and you're going to get off my payroll. So the pressure is to do something in the world that's going to give you a guaranteed pathway to launch, pay your bills. And then what happens is we go out and build our lives, and we wake up one day and we go, I haven't done anything creatively in 50 years, 30 years, 20 years. And it is such a shame because we've always been led to believe you don't want to be the struggling artist. So therefore, don't do it. Leave it alone. It's bad for you. Quite frankly, it's as important as anything because it allows you to really tap into the full side of your humanity. What makes us different than the deer that I see outside my window right now.
Fantastic.
Literally, they could run like us, they could jump, they could eat, they could look you in the eye and non-verbally communicate a little bit. The ears come down, but they can't draw something and they can't play power chords. And so it is something that I'm really intrigued with, and it's part of my mission with One River to transform art education and to help, we'll call it a generation of people who stop doing things to get them to start to do things.
Fantastic. And I love this idea that creative growth can span these ages and generations. And you talk about creativity is not just for the young. Obviously, right there in the subtitle, it's for midlife and beyond. That staying sharp, doing interviews like this, doing 400 episodes of a podcast. You don't think I wake up some Tuesday mornings and say, this is not going to be the day, but you
Yeah.
press through and then you say, that really stimulated my creativity for the day, the week, the whatever. So,
Yeah.
how can, if we are in a leadership, education, professional position, how do you think we can rediscover this creative edge, even
Well,
if we're in midlife or some transition?
it's a great question because the second subheadline is Life Lessons from a Creative Entrepreneur. And so, broadly speaking, while I am trying to help people in midlife, I'm really trying to share my learnings to help people at all stages of their life. And quite often, it is about leaning into their creative soul. One thing that I know is unless somebody puffs out their chest and says, I'm a creative, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, almost all of us think of ourselves as lesser creatives. But let me ask you a question, Mark. When you see someone out in the park and they set up an easel and they're painting, are they doing it for you or are they doing it for them?
Hmm. Interesting.
Think
Yes.
about that. And I spent my whole life doing creative things, but going, I can't tell anybody I'm a creative. They're going to look at me like, what are you talking about? You're a sales leader, you're a general manager, you're a CEO, you're a business objective guy who's got an MBA in finance. And I'm like, no, I'm this quirky, weird guy inside that most people don't know because that's what they see. What they don't know is I write song lyrics and I've written poetry and screenplays, all from my own doing, just dabbling, having fun. And so I think inevitably I came up with something that I describe as, this may sound weird, the raw cycle of creative development. What is it? How do people jump in and stimulate? And in my book, the chapter called Creative Growth is the X Factor. It gives people a way to step into doing something if they haven't done it. Start somewhere. Try not to be self-critical. Try to be engaged with others so you can be inspired by others in the room who are doing things and you could learn from them and build social engagement. And now you start to realize that there's something communal about also making art and making music, doing things. But it really is about practicing. I hate to get to the very sort of essence of it, but the more you do it, the more you'll actually find the fun in it. There has to be a correlation here that it has to be fun because it's for you, it's not for a professional outcome. And once you start to dabble at a few things, you may not like this and you move on to something else. And if you triangulate, you may find that jewelry making is your thing, or making woodwork, or I don't know, making microbrews and making beers. That's a creative thing. You're trying to make a recipe. Cooking is creative. So once you start figuring out what it is that provides joy for you, you wind up doing it more frequently, having better results, improving your skills, having better outcomes, feeling a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
And I think it's a circular thing. And then you practice more and do it more. But you have to let that, how do I say, self-criticism, need to be great has to get reduced in the moment because you may not be great at this. It's not for that right away. And find that sweet spot where you're writing some poetry and you're proud of it. That's what matters most. And you get that sense of accomplishment and you want to do it more.
Yes. I love that this signature cycle of creativity, this circle, we zigzag through art and commerce, the
Yes.
creativity and the business. I'm
Yeah.
curious looking at it from the other side, Matt.
Yep.
There are many people who want to be the CEO of their creative art. They need to and want to make a profession out of
Yes.
it. Having lived in both worlds, that
Yep.
creative side and the C-suite, what can these creative business leaders learn about being an artist for a living?
So what can they learn about being an artist for a living? So it's interesting. I thought you were going to ask, how can I help business people with their creative development?
Yeah, see, I think you've given us that encouragement.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
I'm looking at it the other
Yeah,
way.
yeah, no,
That says,
I get
I'm an
it.
artist. I want to be successful at it, and I want to
Yeah,
make a
so
living and pay the rent.
fantastic.
Yeah,
So now if you've doubled down and you really are an artist, right? Okay. First and foremost, now you have to puff out your chest and say, I'm in the game.
there you go.
We're launching a business. I'm an author, Mark. I never thought I'd be an author. I call myself an author now. I literally own that. So I'm in the game trying to build some appreciation for the work that I've done with my art form, which is writing this book. So I think first and foremost, you have to personally not feel uncomfortable with this new sensibility and how you perceive yourself and how you want to position yourself to the world. If you were starting a new line of clothing, you'd put that clothing out there and it would be out here on the pinnacle. This is the best pair of jeans made, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not suggesting you do that when you're an artist. I'm just suggesting that you be able to share comfortably. This is what I do and why I think it makes a difference in the world. How you relate to it as the consumer, whether you're listening to someone's music, viewing their art, that's on you. But I'm putting it out into the world with a point of view that I'm proud of. And then anything else, you need a marketing model. I have a 27-year-old son who's an artist. He's in Brooklyn. He's in a band called Moon Sand Land, indie rock. He's got another record coming out. And the music space is very hard today. Very hard to promote, very hard to cut through the clutter, very hard to build a brand, particularly in that genre. And so inevitably, it does come down to asking people for help, getting feedback, putting together a strategy and plan, and setting some goals, just like we would do in any business. Once you've said, now I'm in art for the business, I want to build that brand, promote digital media, PR, the entire toolkit that you would do with that clothing company.
Yes. And it's interesting, a lot of those tools are clearly attached to people. I wanted to talk about teams and collaboration a little bit. None of this happens without a team around you. And it's
Yes.
great to have supporters and fans and family members who say, you go for it. And at
Yes.
the same time, whether it's your radio station business, the School of Rock business, your One River School, all of this depends on this ecosystem of partners and collaborators. Talk a minute about the trust in a team and how you have to foster that environment, because
Yeah, I think
none of us creatives can just do it from the basement and call it a day.
Yeah, it's such a great question. Remember, I said to you when we just started speaking earlier about knowing thyself and being very self aware? For me, one of the recipes and one of my successes professionally has been on building teams. And it stems from the place that I know bloody well what I love to do the most and what I'm best at. In my book, I call that my magic. What's your magic, Mark? What is it that you love to do best and are best at? So, what I've always focused on is I should spend 90% of my time in that box, hire complementary talent that is not duplicative, and give them every single thing that they are as good or better than me at. So building teams is a function of the sum total of productivity of that team being way better than you, or maximizing, said differently, maximizing the pure potential sum total of productivity of that team. You don't get it when everybody's the same sales guy, marketing person. You get it when you have people who are experts in a vertical, complement each other really well, and you build a culture where people love to work together and they share and they challenge each other.
And I guess picking up on that thought from your experiences in scaling these companies,
Yep.
how do you find the building that culture replicates the brand experience? Store after store, location after location, state after state, because you want to say,
Sure.
We're not just building branches,
Sure.
we're building this organization.
Sure.
You find that in whether it's a restaurant, a cafe, a healthcare clinic, whatever you're trying to build. How do you replicate the brand experience?
Every company is different and every leader has a slightly different sensibility. The way I view it is there's certain rules that have to be implemented in a multi-unit business that are non-negotiable. We stand for X from a brand standpoint. The product basically needs to be delivered most of the time this way. The facility needs to be looking like this. But if all you do is lecture people with a one-way conversation, you lose trust and you don't cultivate the inspiration from them. So what you need to do is, while you have this toolkit that says, these are the things that have to be done a certain way, all other things are open for conversation, and we want the best ideas win has been a mantra for me. And by the way, if I get the best ideas coming up, I might revisit some of the hard, fast rules in our method. But I can't allow, so I could take any brand anywhere. The salad business has exploded. I don't know if in Boise, Idaho, you have on
Yes,
every corner another salad store.
they're coming.
But just salad says in the Mexican whatever salad, you put X amount of this and Y amount of that, because that's the recipe that they build that salad and that product on. So they want that to happen. But you know what? The way you engage customers, how you make them feel, how you deliver your own personal experience, we want people to accelerate the humanity through relationship building, through hospitality service. So I think whether it's School of Rock, One River School, or any other multi-unit school, replicating is really hard without having standards and rules of engagement. You will literally have the Wild West, especially working with creatives.
Yes.
Because I could tell you, no matter what, if we got to 100 School of Rock locations, we would hire a music director somewhere, and they would look us in the eye and say, "You don't know what you're doing." And they had the right to feel that way, but they didn't have the right to change the special sauce. But we would create a forum to allow them to share what they think we should do differently when we all agreed that we should do something differently.
That's right. Matt, such good insights. I've really enjoyed our conversation. But now, before we wrap up, I wanted to make sure that people knew where to find you, where to learn about the book, and learn more
Yep.
about you and your work.
I appreciate it. So there's probably three ways. MattRoss.com. We've built a small website there. In fact, since we are right now, and I'm not sure when this will be live, Mark, but the book will be available for purchase on January 13th. It's available now in pre-order. So MattRoss.com is a great place. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. You could also take a look at OneRiverSchool.com and see what we're doing. We're 15 locations and planning to expand our footprint across the country. And reach out. I'm easy to reach, and I'd love to engage with people. And the whole purpose of the book was to help people and give back and share at this stage of my life. And I'm really thrilled with the outcome and happy over the next year to go out and talk and help people.
I know it's going to be well received. Thanks for sharing these insights. So there's going to be listeners, Matt, that are standing now at that crossroads, and they say, I'm going to pick up this book because I don't want to fold. I want to grow as I'm standing here. But I'm thinking about, of all the things we've talked about, I'd love to think about one action, that there's this micro step, something that I could do today that if I felt like folding, I could turn the corner and start growing. What do you think that might be for folks?
Great question. And I'm going to share something that I didn't share. I came up with this topic called the dysfunctional safe zone. Let me just share briefly what that is. Have you ever been to a party or talk with a friend or family member, and they make the longest list of problems and challenges that they have? And you sit and you might share 30 different things. And after you've shared whatever it is, they say no to everything. Because change is really hard, but not changing is worse. And taking personal responsibility is what's required. So from my standpoint, this dysfunctional safe zone is, I know I've got all this stuff. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. We just shared a whole bunch of ideas. How about deploying one or two. It's just like I said, when you get into art making, you just get started. So they talk about changing habits, changing where you are and to get to where you want to get to. Doesn't happen overnight, but you do build a positive brain response, chemical response by just moving the needle forward. I said to you, I was in the basement. I didn't know what to do, but I was going to begin that next day. And I started to make a list of inventory. So the one thing you can do, make it a list of the things that you are struggling with. Pick one. Pick one item that you want to make some progress on in the next 30 days and get past that dysfunctional safe zone to rationalize why you can't do it. That's it. If you can't focus on growth for one of your challenges, get help. Contact someone, get a friend, get a professional. And that happens quite often. So I don't want to minimize this. People sometimes are stuck and they can't do it. So it's really important. But hopefully that gives some insight as to what to do.
It does. It does. Pick that one thing and let's give it a try.
Bingo. Get going.
Well, my guest has been Matt Ross. He's got a terrific new book, Grow or Fold, Transform Yourself in Midlife and Beyond. And we've talked not just about midlife, but really at any age, at any stage of your creativity, we can take some of these steps. Congratulations on the book, Matt, and thanks for being a part of this milestone episode of the podcast. I really appreciate it.
All the best to you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience. And thanks to our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee. They're helping fuel creative conversations like this everywhere. And listeners, you can enjoy 10% off your first order at whitecloudcoffee.com. And listen, before we go, I want you to be sure to download your free ebook copy of my book, A World of Creativity. It's a collection of interviews from the podcast. Just visit mark-stinson.com. And then come back for our next episode. And I hope you'll subscribe and rate and review the podcast. It's what's helped us grow over the past 7 years. We'll continue these round the world travels. We've stopped at creative capitals around the world talking to creatives about how they get inspired and how they organize ideas. And as we've learned today, how we can gain the confidence and connections to launch our work out into the world. So until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll keep unlocking your world of creativity. Bye for now.